I want to show how I make my inside out wood turned Christmas ornament. And so we begin with a set of 4 square ended blocks of wood. And we're going to glue them together like this in such a way that I can pull this apart again and flip these pieces around. Well, I'll glue it together so I can put it on the lathe and turn the outside of it. That will become the inside of it when I pull it apart and turn these pieces around, and then we turn it again. So that's the trick to doing these inside out. That's why they call it the inside out wood turn Christmas ornament. So I'm going to show you that process. So we begin with these pieces, these blocks of wood. They're perfectly square, perfectly parallel edges. I ran them through the planer. And so in order to be able to pull these apart later, but hold them together while I turn them on the lathe, I need to glue this piece of newspaper in there, and that will make it easier to separate these because they'll only be glued here at the ends. Okay, so here we go. All right, so this is dry enough to start gluing the pieces together. It's important that I keep everything good and square, or as much as possible. So I'm going to glue these half at a time instead of all 4 at once. All right, I'll let that sit for about a half an hour and then we'll glue these 2 halves together. These are dry enough, the glue is dry enough to glue the rest of it together. And we'll let that set overnight. Okay. So I have some clear packing tape here, big strong plastic tape, and I'm going to wrap this these ends. This has been curing overnight for the glue to dry on these joints. This is just an extra added safety measure to make this so it does, in case it splits up, because when I'm going to put this on the lathe, there's going to be a point in here that could wedge it apart and weaken this joint, so because it's a temporary joint. So this is just to strengthen this so that it doesn't fly apart on the lathe. And so I'll do this on either end of all of these pieces. This one I've already wrapped, both ends. And so this will mount between centers, and we'll show. You'll see that in a few moments. So I need to drill a pilot hole here, just for the points on my centering devices on my lathe, so that it doesn't split. Give the point a place to go without wedging it apart. Okay, so now I'm going to mount this on my lathe. And I have these 2 points in my centers. And this fits, these little points fit into the holes I just drilled. Lock that down, tighten this up. I'm going to get the teeth to bite in here. Get this nice and tight in here. Make sure I'm not going to hit anything. So I'm getting ready to cut on this thing. So essentially I need to stay away from these ends because I need to, once I turn this, when I turn this, we're doing the inside, what will become the inside of this. So I'm staying away from the ends because I need this square so that when I'm done cutting here, I can split this apart, flip these around 90 degrees, and glue it back together. So I need to stay away from this part, and we got the tape on there to keep it from flying apart on me. So I'm essentially going to be cutting a shape in here, something. I need a knob on the end of this, and then I'm going to have a shape here. I'm going to cut the inside out, something like this. I want this to come to a point here. I want this one kind of like that, roughly like that. And then this shape will be on all of these pieces as I cut this, or as this turns, see. So, and we'll do a little texturing in here or something so that we have some interesting detail going on there. So essentially that's what we're going to do, cut that out.
So I'm using a, this is called a spindle gouge that I'm using at the moment. So now I'm using a carbide tool. That's the round. Much smoother cut. So now I'm using a parting tool. I'm just going to make some cuts in here. And there is the inside of that. So we just need to sand that a little bit now. And then we can break it apart and glue it back together. I got some 150 grit sandpaper. Way too fast to sand. Alright, so I've sanded it, and so now we take it off the lathe and break it apart and flip the pieces around. Alright, so I've got a razor knife here. I'm going to cut my packing tape. Pull that off. Pause. Okay, so now I've got a knife here, and I'm going to get it in between these pieces, and then we'll just split right apart without any splintering. Okay, so now we're going to take scrape off this. I don't have to get it all off. This is going to be on the outside anyway. Okay, So we've split it apart, and now I need to glue it together. This is going to be the inside. It will look, I'll give you an idea. That's what the inside will look like. Okay. And then when I cut this on the lathe, this will hopefully open this window up a little more as I run this on the lathe. Okay. So for now, I need to glue these together, and it's very important to keep this square. So I'm going to glue these halves together, let them set for half an hour, and then come back once the glue firms up. We'll come back and then glue these two halves together. So for now, and it's real important when you're doing this to not get glue close to this edge here so that you don't have squeeze out, because once I glue that together, you can't get in there to clean that out. Okay. Alright, so now it's time to glue this together. Okay. Now we just let that sit overnight, and we can turn them in the morning. So I've taken this out of the clamps. We did the inside, spun it around, turned around the pieces, and glued it permanently. And now I'm going to mount it on my centers. And then you got to turn it so it's round. So I'm going to use a roughing gouge to start turning this round. So I need to cut tenons on the ends to hold this in a different way with different means. And so that's going to be about that big on either end. And so I'll cut that down to a smaller diameter here, and I'll have a way to grab that with my chuck. Or if I need to, I can turn it around, but I'll hold it with a point on one end and a chuck on the other where I'll grab it. And so it's going to be, the plan here is to shape this object. It should have a knob on the top where I can drill a hole in it to make a hanger. And then we'll have a shape of this something like that. Roughly that profile, something like that. That's the intention here. So we'll start, see what we get. So I need to cut this to a smaller diameter also, because I need to, and as I do, this window will enlarge, and I want to be able to see more of the interior here. So that's the plan. So we're going to cut tenons on the end first, and then I'll cut a smaller diameter on the other central part before I start shaping it. Now I'm going to mount it on my chuck. So now I'm ready to start shaping this thing. Never know what you're going to get until we start cutting into this. So I want to cut it a little bit deeper, make a smaller diameter to start opening this window up a little bit. And then after that we'll start shaping the shoulder and the taper here on this end. And just kind of wing it as we go. Have to be really careful when I'm going over this area to go very slowly. I don't want to get any chip out on these windows. I don't want to tear the edges. So if I go slower with the speed up high, There it is. So all I have to do now is cut off this end and we're done. And there it is. I'll just cut that off with a knife. Okay, so I need to drill a hole here for the hanger. I filed a flat spot on this so I could poke a hole and so my drill won't take a walk on me. There's the hole. Well, here's the finished ornament hanging, and hopefully you can see inside it.